Hi, what I'm going to talk about in this video is how to make firmware changes to the Anatron to add extra features to the way it operates. I'm going to be releasing the source code for the firmware under an open source license, so anybody with a bit of programming capability will be able to make changes if they want to. If you're a musician, you might not be a coder yourself, but you probably know people who are. And even if you don't, I'm expecting that we're going to build up a community of software developers once I've released the code. Just to illustrate the point, I'm going to show how I added an extra feature. We can modify the parameters of the Anatron, such as, say, the filter cutoff frequency, by means of a number of ways of modulating it. One of those is by modulating it with a low frequency oscillator. Another is by means of an external control voltage generated maybe from a pedal or something like that. Several people asked me, well, could we change the speed of the low frequency oscillator by means of the pedal? At the time we couldn't. But what I did was I set about making that change, and I'm going to demonstrate to you now how I did that just in 2 or 3 minutes. It was a simple 3-step process. First of all, I added another couple of variables. Secondly, I added a clause in the routine that processes the incoming MIDI messages to deal with updating those variables. And finally, I added a couple of lines in the main program loop to take account of the movement of the pedal in changing the speed of the LFO. I'll show you how we did that right now, and then I'll demonstrate it in action. As I said, it just takes a couple of minutes. So first of all, I'm just going to add another couple of variables. These are called L-speed base, which is going to be the static setting of the LFO speed, and L-speed external, that's the amount that we're going to control it by means of the external control voltage input, which is coming from the pedal in our case. I'm then going to go down to the routine where I pass the MIDI control data. This is called proc control message, process control message if you like, and it's essentially a large switch statement which determines what value of controller number it is, and then sets an appropriate internal variable accordingly. I'm controlling the speed of the low frequency oscillator by controller number 32 at the moment. I'm going to make a small mod to that. Instead of controlling L speed directly, it now is going to control L speed base. I'm going to add another case clause to deal with controlling the amount that we're going to have the pedal affect it. So I'm going to select controller number 15 for that, and I've just added an extra case clause there, so that will set L speed external to whatever control value is coming in on that controller. And finally, I'm going to add another couple of lines in the main control loop to update the low frequency oscillator frequency according to the amount that the pedals moved, if any, from the previous time that it came around the loop. So I'm just doing this calculation. I'm setting L speed, which controls the speed of the LFO, to L speed base plus L speed external ratioed by the pedal value. And finally, I'm just doing a quick check to make sure it hasn't overflowed above 127, which is the maximum controller value. Then, having done that, I simply upload the program. It's now compiling. Okay, so now that I've added that capability to the firmware, we've got to find a way of controlling it, which we do by sending values to MIDI control channel 15, as you recall from the change we just made in the code. I'm using this application MIDI Designer running on my iPad, and so to add the extra control I go into design mode. Right, so I'm going to add another knob just here. Knob, add one, make it a bit bigger, get it lined up with the others, double tap it to go into the settings. I'm going to give it a name. And I'm going to set its MIDI properties to MIDI channel 1, controller 15, and apply that. And I'll exit design mode. Now if we listen to what we've got, if I turn the speed down to 0 and I turn it up to full on the pedal, then with the pedal I'm going to be able to run over the whole range. And if I set the speed to a certain amount, say 64, and I bring the control of that, it'll just operate over a smaller fraction. Effectively we're running it from a value of 64 up to about 100.